For men, they get into relationships with women that works for him, but where she suffers.
A tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Everything about that sounds miserable and unhinged.
Ladies, I think this is that just crack the code. I feel like this is a video every lady to watch. I take that back. Everybody should watch the video, including if you're a woman, a man. I think you should watch this video. And I know a lot of women are actually thinking about this, but they don't know where to put this. Like, they're just like, what am I feeling? Why am I still here? And if you're a man that still wonders, how does a woman just pick up and leave? Or how does a woman just wake up one morning and want a divorce? Then watch this video. Hey beautiful people, how you are doing today? It's your girl Destiny here, and welcome back to my channel. How you are doing? Hope you guys are doing great. So today's video, I find this video very interesting. Like, I saw that video, I'm just like, I'm making that video now. Like, I have to film this video for you guys so you guys see. So this is a video of a sister who was reading a story of Reddit, and literally what the story was about was a man talking about how his girlfriend just pick up and go, and he was so surprised about it. And his friend asked him that, is there a way where she has showed you signs that she was going to break up with you and leave? And he was like, really, not really, because I just felt that she was unhappy, but her happiness was tolerable level of unhappiness. I have to slow down on that because I just feel like that word is the key word of the year, ladies. Anyway, guys, let's go hear the story, then we'll come back and talk.
I just found something on Reddit that is kind of groundbreaking, and I needed to share it with you guys because it put words to something that I couldn't voice for a really long time. And I think we need to add it to our vocabulary, like weaponized incompetence and king baby. I found it in this Reddit thread. My partner came home all outraged that his friend was crying as he had been dumped. Since I'm friends with the ex-girlfriend, I wasn't surprised and told him so. When he went to see his mate the next day, he was being supportive. I told him to ask a few questions to ascertain whether he really was caught off guard, as if it was unexpected to me. I'm confused why it would be unexpected to the man in the actual relationship. Partner came home and went, So I spoke to him and he said he knew she'd been unhappy, but he thought it was just a rough patch. So yeah, he did know. He wasn't caught off guard. He just thought it was a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. My friend, the ex-girlfriend, is thriving. A tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Wow, that is a life-changing sentence. I agree, because this is what I think is the baseline for men. They get into relationships with women that works for him, but where she suffers, and then slowly chip away at her freedom and her happiness, and used weaponized incompetence to get her to a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. That's what it is. I love the internet.
So please go down and share your thoughts. Love to know what you think about it. So please share your thoughts. This got a lot of people were like talking about this, and it's all beginning to make sense. Let's go hear other people's thoughts. I will come back and share my thoughts on this tolerable level of unhappiness, tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Keyword. Anyway, guys, let's go hear people's thoughts on this. Then we'll come back and talk.
For men, they get into relationships with women that works for him, but where she suffers.
A tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Everything about that sounds miserable and unhinged. And it also makes me think about all of the data that has come out that has shown that men benefit most from relationship with women, both financially, health, educationally. They also live longer when in relationships with women, while the opposite is actually true for women. Like, no shade, but shade. With all of that knowledge, what is really the benefit of being in relationships with men? Especially when men are not intentionally unpacking and unlearning their misogynistic views towards women. Which is why I think a lot of women are choosing to stay single or choosing not to settle, because we've spent the time to cultivate a community of people around us that helps to provide some level of companionship where we don't have to rush into relationships with men, especially men who are not doing the work.
He wasn't caught off guard. He just thought it was a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness.
Go watch Char's video and then come back after you follow her and finish watching her video. Tolerable level of permanent unhappiness is essentially a place that I think most men are pretty much comfortable with when it comes to watching their female partner slowly descend into a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Now, the thing is no one usually starts a relationship in a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. But men will say things like, well, I don't know what happened. I don't know how we got there. You know, it came out of the blue. Did it come out of the blue? Well, no. I just thought we were in a rough patch, though. Let me tell you something. When men are unhappy, it's intolerable level of any level of unhappiness. But when women are unhappy, it's a rough patch. I'm sorry. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Men do not really seem to care too much about the emotions we express to them because they don't really express emotions as a way of demonstrating their unhappiness most of the time. When men are unhappy, they just leave or they totally shut down and check out of the relationship. Whereas when women are unhappy, what I've noticed, and this is painting with a broad brush, but when women are unhappy, what I've noticed is they lean farther into the relationship and try to fix things and see if anything can improve by encouraging their male partner to be better, trying to teach their male partner how to be better, showing or trying to lay some sort of groundwork about what the relationship is going to need to improve. And men listen to all that and absorb it as much as like, I don't know. I'm too tired to make an analogy. They don't absorb a lot of it. But I think the problem is, Shar was saying tolerable level of permanent unhappiness is something that they think is acceptable for their female partners because they'll just call it a rough patch and coast along as long as a woman will tolerate them. Any level of toleration that a woman displays in a relationship, and this is as a 40-year-old woman, this is what I've learned. I'm sorry, it's just the truth, is sending a message to your partner, your male partner, that is an acceptable level of whatever it is they're doing. Because men don't seem to speak with words. They speak with actions. And when men are unhappy, not only will you know, but they're going to peace out. Women need to start leaving. They have to stop hanging around waiting for these guys to change. Men often don't care if we're happy.
He wasn't caught off guard. He just thought it was a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness.
A tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Wow, this one hit hard. Because this was me. This was my marriage. I had a permanent level of unhappiness that I tolerated for a time until I couldn't anymore, and then I left. But back to the guy in this Reddit thread. This proves what many of us on this app, women who've been talking about all these things, weaponized incompetence, and all these things with problems with marriage and heterosexual relationships, heteronormativity. This kind of proves what we knew all along, or what we're maybe just now realizing, some of us. They know we're unhappy and they don't care. They expect us to be. There's a certain level of unhappiness that women are expected to put up with. And if we refuse to put up with them, we're bad women who've ruined their lives and broken their hearts. If we refuse to put up with this level of permanent unhappiness, when explaining to people about our marriage and how it ended or our relationship, we're made to look like selfish harpies who, left someone for no reason. So unless we're getting beaten up, shot, or treated so miserably that society says, oh, well, okay, I guess it's okay to leave him now, we're not allowed to leave. We're expected to put up with it. We're expected to cope. And that's pretty much most of what's referred to as the heterosexual repair industry, which is what the author of The Tragedy of Heterosexuality, a book I highly recommend, talks about, the relationship self-help industry. That's what she calls it. All the solutions to the relationship problems, most of them seem to fall into the category of helping women develop the coping skills to cope with their mistreatment and their unhappiness, instead of addressing the unhappiness directly. The entire system is built upon our unhappiness. It's built on the exploitation of women. So of course they expect that we're gonna be unhappy probably most of the time, but that we should just put up with it because reasons. But we're not putting up with it anymore, which is part of what triggers these guys' anger, it's like, how dare you? How dare you center yourself? How dare you consider your own happiness over everybody else's? How dare you refuse to put up with unequal treatment when you are a woman and you are expected to allow yourself to be exploited for the sake of maintaining heteropatriarchy, heteronormativity? Well, screw that. We're not doing that anymore. These guys, some of the things that they're doing, I've broken up with people for less than that.
He wasn't caught off guard. He just thought it was a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. My friend.
This should be the phrase of the year, a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Because, yeah, that's what it's like being in a relationship with a cishet dude. Every relationship that I've had with a cishet man that lasted for any length of time ended because I remember sitting there in various situations and saying, is this how I'm going to actually live the rest of my life? And I remember distinctly in each of those 3 relationships looking down one path and saying, this is how I get to live my life if I want to be true to myself, and this is how I'm going to live my life if I'm going to take care of King Baby for the rest of my days. Because every single relationship devolved from something that was beneficial and good and felt great for me into me caretaking or managing their emotions or just trying to survive. And there was this moment in each of those relationships where I realized that I was going to have to accept being unhappy in order to stay in that situation. And luckily for me, it was never worth it. Now I only date the queers and it's a lot easier. Anyway, votes for that to be the phrase of the year.
Men, they get into relationships with women that works for him, but where she suffers.
Please, y'all, go watch her whole video because I agree with her 100%. And it reminds me of a time I was watching this interview with a family full of basketball wives. That's what I would say. And all of them looked so miserable. They all looked so miserable. And there were rumors about a couple of their husbands or whatever. And that made me just start thinking for real, because I was in a similar situation at the time. I was in a relationship with somebody who I loved, and I know they love me. One of the closest times I've ever been to the altar. And I was miserable. Like, I could see that moments that he thought I was sad made him love me more, if that makes sense. And that started me to thinking then. And then when I came on TikTok and started watching all these videos about how men relate pain to love, things started to make sense. So I have a theory. Stick with me. And men, if you don't agree, let me know, because I'm trying to have a discussion. I'm trying to figure this thing out. What if it's not that they're trying to be incompetent or use incompetence as a weapon or do some of the stuff they do because they don't like you? What if they do it because they actually do like you? And when you're happy, they don't feel love. They don't feel that in love, she loves me. It's only when you're suffering but staying, you have sacrificed your happiness and you're staying, do they feel like, oh, she would rather be with me than be happy. And because they see that you're in pain, that makes them feel love. I'm really trying to work this thing out because I can vouch that both of my relationships that I got the closest to the altar, I did not show up as the best version of myself. I was horrible. Both of those guys are still single to this day. It's been years ago. And I don't even know if they've been in relationships since me, for real. I think men equate pain to love. And so, ladies, it's time to get the prayer cloth out and start getting some oil and sprinkling it everywhere. Sprinkle that. Because we have to break some chains down. Because I just refuse to be in a relationship where somebody doesn't feel like I love them unless they see that they have caused me pain.
Did know. He wasn't caught off guard. He just thought it was a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness.
So men often say that they were blindsided by their wives or girlfriends wanting to leave the relationship. And I saw this come up a lot in the recent conversations about no-fault divorce. So men, stick around because I'm going to share my #1 piece of relationship advice to help you avoid this. But Shah here, a creator who is well worth your follow, is sharing a story about a man who said exactly that, only he did know his girlfriend was unhappy. He just thought it was a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Which, oof. And then Soberside, a creator I greatly admire and respect, who is also well worth your follow, stitched that video and added her thoughts, which I will link in the caption so that you can navigate your way to both videos. And she added this.
Any level of toleration is sending a message to your partner, your male partner, that that is an acceptable level of whatever it is they're doing.
Now, over the years, the women that I'm friends with have often called me in to play dude whisperer and explain some of the behavior of the men in their relationships. And one of the things that I have said consistently time and time again over the years is he will do what you allow. That what you tolerate, he'll just do more of. See, I think there's this expectation that since he cares, over time, eventually he will notice. He'll change. He'll do the decent and right thing, and then frustration when that never actually happens. And that's because men love to live in the I didn't know about things they obviously knew. I didn't know it was wrong for me to DM that girl or to like all of her pictures on Instagram. I didn't know it would be such a big deal for me to go out for drinks alone with a female coworker or go to a strip club. I didn't know you needed help with chores around the house. It's how I didn't know you were unhappy actually means I knew you were unhappy. I just didn't know you were unhappy enough to leave. And sadly, decades of terrible relationship advice has not only fed into but also enabled this behavior in men by suggesting that it is the unfortunate consequence of their preference for direct communication rather than what it actually is, which is another form of weaponized incompetence. Which is why when women are clear and direct about setting boundaries about the kind of relationships they want, men get irrationally irate about it, even men who are not in a relationship with that woman. But it does not take direct communication for you to know if your partner is unhappy. Spend enough time with the person, live with them, and you know when they are unhappy or when they are happy. And men joke about this. Oh, she's in a mood. Oh, she's so moody. Oh, when mama's not happy, nobody's happy. Men are well aware when their partners are unhappy, but they're also well aware about the things that upset, annoy, stress them out, and trigger them. As an example, my fiance was working last weekend to pick up extra hours, and I went to go work out of the kitchen. Now I noticed that the sink had a few dishes in it, that the countertops could do with wiping, and so could the oven range. Now it was not dirty enough to bother me, but at this point I am well aware that clutter and mess stress out my fiance and make her anxious, adding to the stress of her already working the weekend. So I took a few minutes, and while she was working, I deep cleaned the kitchen, and then I went right back to doing what I wanted to do. And when she came into the kitchen later that day, she burst into visible tears of joy. No doubt she'd seen the kitchen earlier in the day before I had, and just added it to her tally of things to do, adding to her overall stress. And so me also recognizing it, prioritizing it, and taking care of it without being asked was incredibly moving. So here it is, fellas, the single most important piece of relationship advice I can give you. It will prevent you being blindsided and being so passive about dealing with the issues in your relationships. It's a mantra you need to repeat every day, and it goes like this. If it is important to you, it is important to me. Make your partner's priorities your own. You do not need to agree. You do not need to understand. But you do need to learn what makes your partner happy, what stresses them out, what triggers and annoys them. And then you spend time every day putting effort into dealing with those priorities. No manipulation, no mind games. It's that simple. But also recognize that expecting your partner to tolerate any level of permanent unhappiness in a relationship with you is you admitting that they would be better off and happier without you. So don't be surprised when they agree with you.
And use weaponized incompetence to get her to a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness.
You have to go back and watch her video. It's very, very good. So basically in the video, she's saying that men will break women down to a point where she's miserable, but not miserable enough to leave with weaponized incompetence. Now, here's my perspective from the outside looking in and me just kind of piecing stuff together. From my observation, I don't believe that men consciously and purposefully do that to women. What I think happens is men do that to women because they do that to themselves. I think that men, whether conscious or unconscious, have this thing in their head that once you get married and once you are in a long-term relationship, there is a level of misery that you are going to have to tolerate. So when their women come to them and talk about how unhappy they are and how unfulfilled they are, they can't grasp it because to them, I'm miserable and unhappy too. And this is just what we do in relationships. This is part of it. Now let's talk this through. So if you got men going into a relationship expecting a certain level of unhappiness, and you got a bunch of women that have been told once you get into a marriage, you'll all of a sudden be happy. Conflict. both folks have two different expectations of what's going to happen. That's why a lot of men get complacent in relationships. They will be with a woman for decades and barely like her because to them, this is what they were expecting once they got married. The nurse was married before, and he stated that when his ex-wife initially filed for divorce, he was shocked. He knew that they were having problems and that they had some issues going on, but never to the point where divorce was needed. Then he stated, fast forward past the divorce, back to regular life, he sat and reflected and he realized he was very unhappy in the marriage too. But while he was in it, he didn't know how unhappy he was. Even with that being said, he stated if she had not filed for divorce, he'd still be married to her to this day. Why? He was at a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. It's why you can't get a man to break up with you. It's why a man would rather cheat than get a divorce. It's why men get real complacent in relationships. I honestly believe that a lot of men have been taught, or I don't know if it's their DNA or their makeup or whatever, that being unhappy and being miserable in a relationship is part of it. Just, this is what I signed up for. Isn't that sad? Oh, that's so sad.
Used weaponized incompetence to get her to a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness.
So this is why it's so important what our media and even content creators are showing us. If you grew up watching shows like Everybody Loves Raymond, Modern Family, King of Queens, then you might have grown up thinking that men are kind of stupid in the house and that women just are always at their wits' end, having to save the day, having to explain simple concepts to their husbands who somehow are also the sole providers. But anyways, then you might be primed to think that men just aren't good in the house and they're not good with babies, that that's women, that's their job. Or that it's not only normal but expected for dads not to pull their weight and for their wives to be just a little bit pissed off with them.
Tolerable level of permanent unhappiness.
A tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Go back and watch the whole video. I love that phrase. You often hear so many times, if a man's wife files for divorce or if his girlfriend breaks up with him, what is the top thing we all hear them say? I was blindsided. They're not blindsided because they don't know that we're disappointed, that we're upset. We've had the discussions. We've talked to them about these things. We've brought it up. They just chose to ignore it. What they're blindsided by is the fact that they've been conditioned to believe that once you grow up, if you do things right, you'll be given a wife and it'll be her job to raise your kids, to run your household, and to take care of you. If she's a good wife, she'll just be quiet and do what she's supposed to do. And if you're really lucky, she'll actually trick herself into believing that she loves doing that. You can use her, you can abuse her, you can make her live in an environment where she feels like she has to walk on eggshells, and she will stay with you. You don't have to be willing to take family pictures, and if you do, you bitch and complain the whole time. You don't have to plan trips or do anything with her, and if you do, you'll just bitch and complain the whole time. You don't have to take any effort to get her gifts for Mother's Day, for her birthday, or for Christmas, because if you do, you'll just bitch and complain about doing it, or just throw some at her that you grabbed at a random box chain grocery store, and she'll like it and lie to you and say that she loves it. You were conditioned to believe that women are here to coddle you and to put up with your and to make your life easier and to make you comfortable. And when one day the wife that you have or the girlfriend you have decides that enough is enough and I'm getting the short end of the stick and it's not working out for me, I'm losing myself, I'm losing my health, and I'm actually stuck with people that doesn't give a shit about me. The moment she realizes that and she has an epiphany and she decides she's done, all of a sudden you're blindsided because this goes against the plan. This wasn't how it's supposed to go. She made vows with you in sickness and in health, but what that really means is in your sickness and to the detriment of her health, in her richness and in your poorness and whatever you're in. She's supposed to stick beside you no matter what. So what do you mean you don't want to do that? All the men who were blindsided weren't really blindsided. They just can't believe that you broke free and you're growing against the mold of what the world told them they deserved, which is a wife, someone to continue taking care of them where their mother left off. Even with me, my abusive ex-husband will tell you he was blindsided, but the was abusive and cheating out of the ass. We're supposed to be willing to give up our health and our identities in order to serve them, and then when we don't want to do that, it's controversial.
A tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Wow, that is a life-changing sentence.
Wow, a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. My mind is blown. You should go back and watch that whole video. Therese Lee also stitched this video. I'm going to link hers below because she said a lot of great stuff. And if you're not already following her, what are you doing? You should be following her. So anyone who's ever watched my videos on childhood trauma knows that I was sandwiched between my brothers. I had a brother 18 months older than me, a brother 18 months younger than me, and then there was another brother 18 months younger than him. So throughout my childhood, the contrast of the difference between the way we were raised and the way we were socialized was a little bit more obvious. If my brothers had a need or a concern, it was always addressed, but my sisters and I were always taught to sit down, put up, and shut up. We were specifically groomed and taught to have our needs take a back burner. We were specifically taught to just endure things. And my brother's comfort was always at the cost of our discomfort. And my sisters and I have since talked about how normalized it was for us to make the sacrifice for them to be okay. And at church, the only women who were ever praised or even talked about in a non-negative way were women that were self-sacrificing, women who put themselves on the line and put everybody else before them and lived these hard, very difficult lives, but you know what? They earned their place in heaven because they filled their roles as women. I remember being able to recognize this, but not quite put my finger on it or describe what it was. And I was like, I don't want this dynamic, but I couldn't pinpoint it. And when I got married, it was like flipping a switch with him. Suddenly, up until that point, he had recognized my needs. He was all about taking care of me. And then it was like flipping a switch. And suddenly, I was supposed to be making all the sacrifices. And a couple of years ago, when my sisters and I actually started discussing this and putting our feet down and being like, no, this is not the life we want to live. We can now identify this. There were so many people in all of our lives that suddenly were so unbelievably angry that we were not sacrificing ourselves for their comfort. And the thing is, this is still happening, not as much in non-religious circles, but my daughter goes to school and the boys will be doing stuff and she gets blamed for it. That phrase describes how every little girl gets socialized, and her value to the patriarchy is measured by how well she complies with it.
I just found something on Reddit that is kind of groundbreaking, and I needed to share it with you guys because it put words.
I will never threaten to break up with you. I will simply break up with you when it's time. Every guy that I've broken up with has acted blindsided, but nothing that I've broken up with them over has been something that I hadn't brought up earlier on in the relationship multiple times leading up to them. If I'm complaining about something multiple times during the relationship, that is your opportunity to show me whether or not you care enough about my happiness to make a change, without the stakes being whether or not it means you have a girlfriend anymore. If my happiness and me being treated well isn't a priority in and of itself for you in that relationship, then you don't like me and you don't love me. You just want a girlfriend, and literally anyone could fill that spot. It doesn't have to be. Also, something I've noticed in other people's relationships is quite often when a woman threatens to break up with a man over an issue that's probably been a big issue for a long time, and she tells him, if you don't change this, I'm gonna leave you. Usually he'll change for like 2 weeks, 2 months, and then he's back to the exact same behavior. So I just would rather not deal with that. I would just rather see your true colors. Also, if it takes threatening to break up with you in order to get you to change, that's kind of an insult to me, because it means that you're actually comfortable with my unhappiness in the relationship because it didn't affect you. And the only reason you can't change is because it affects your relationship style. Also, don't be daft. Use common sense. Obviously, I'm not referring to like minor issues, and I'm not saying that your partner is solely responsible for your happiness, but if you're sharing a huge part of your life with someone, then yes, a lot of things they do will directly affect your happiness, negatively or positively.
So please go down in the comment section and share your thought. Love to read from you on this. So go down in the comment section and share your thought. Please do that. I love reading from you guys. So please go down and share your thought. But please keep it respectful, because here on this channel we're very respectful. We have amazing conversation. So you can share your opinion without being disrespectful or rude to anybody. Okay? So go down there and let's just be respectful like we always are here. Okay? So for me, like this video just make a whole lot of sense, because I know personally of a lot of women in this situation where they're in this tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Like they've accepted their fate and they're just like, you know what, we're just going to be here. I would say for a particular level in my life, there was a stage in my life where I was in this place where I'm just like, oh my God, I keep nagging about this. Like they claim we do, like, oh, I keep nagging about this thing, it's not changing. All I have to do is just be comfortable with it. Just don't let it bother me. But even though deep down we know it bothers us down there, that this thing that you keep complaining about, this man is not ready to change. But this just really makes sense that a lot of men, when you keep talking about something like how this thing affects you, how these things trigger you, a lot of men, I'm not saying all men, a lot of men, they don't see the response for them to do anything about it, because they just feel like, if I continue my ways and just continue being me, she's not going to go anywhere. Like, why should I change what I'm doing? It's not harming me. Like, even though they know you're unhappy, they'll just feel like that does not mean you don't love me, or that does not mean you're going to leave. So I feel like that just makes them go on with whatever they're doing. Some of you guys don't know, I'll be married for 10 years, but in 2 weeks time. Okay, it's my 2 weeks anniversary and my birthday. Okay, so, and me and my husband, we've been together for 20 years. Okay, so we've known each other, been together like a couple for 20 years. But one thing I'm going to tell you, and what people ask me a lot of time, that, oh, how did you keep it all together, how did you people stay that long? One of the things, especially for our marriage, was that there was divorce on the table. And this was a conversation we had prior to our marriage and all that. Well, we had that conversation that the most important thing in this relationship is for us to be happy as an individual. If one person is not feeling happy being together or being in this marriage, we should speak up and have that conversation, and then we'll try and work it out and try to do something about whatever is making that person unhappy. But if that unhappiness still continue and linger on, then it's a big room for divorce. Like, divorce has always been on the table. And I know, like, when women are raised, they always put that notion that, oh, you don't ever mention divorce is not an option. I get people that believes in that, like, okay, I respect you, but I feel like one of the things that has probably keep both of us in check and to make it just keep going was the fact that the other person knows that there's divorce on the table. And I feel for the longest time, it might also be a tolerable level of unhappiness, but he knows that it will get to that point where I might just walk away. So I feel like a certain level for women is that we've been programmed, we've been taught, we've been raised that a long-suffering woman is a woman that will inherit the kingdom or whatever. Like, they always make us feel like there's reward at the end of every suffering as a woman. That as a woman, you have to be that long-suffering, prayerful wife that keeps the family together. As a woman, you don't look after yourself. You don't put your happiness as priority. You put everybody else priority before yours. So that has made a lot of women be on that tolerable level of permanent happiness that they just learn how to do with it. And I know a lot of our mothers that are still married to our fathers, that's where they were. Like, they just feel like, I'm in it already, I'm in it, there's nothing I can do, another. And I also feel that's what makes a lot of African men very, very complacent, and why this thing really stretch on, especially in my community, is that in my community, it is wrong. It is so wrong for a woman to say she wants a divorce. Like, they'll tell you, is a woman that puts the family together, is a woman that keeps the family together. Let him be a man, leave him, just keep praying. And I feel like that makes a lot of men in my society feel like once they marry you, you are not going anywhere. So no matter whatever thing they throw at you in this marriage, in this union, in this relationship, you're still going to be there because there's nowhere to go to. You will not go anywhere. Even the society will not support you. Even your own family will not support you. And I feel like this just all makes sense. Like, I'm super excited about this newfound word, like a tolerable level of permanent unhappiness. Ladies, I like this type of conversation when we have such level of conversation, because I feel like now we're talking to each other, we're hearing each other out. It's clicking on our head like, this is it. This is what I'm going through. This is, it's not right. I'm not running mad. It is wrong. What I'm feeling is valid. Like, I love such conversation. Okay. Anyway, guys, please go down in the comment section and share your thoughts. I'd love to know what you think about this whole conversation, and feel free to share your opinion. And also let me know if you agree with those sisters that feel like men attach unhappiness to love. Like, if you're unhappy and you're still with them, that means that you love them unconditionally. Let me know if you agree with those sisters down in the comment section. For me, I feel like I agree with them, because I feel like they are always attached. If a woman is steadfast to be in that relationship, that means the woman really loves them. That means the woman is holding it down for them. But will they hold it down for you? That's a question we should ask ourselves. Anyway, guys, please go down and share your thoughts, and please share this video with somebody that you want to be part of the conversation, because that's what we do here. We have banging conversation. So go down and share this video with somebody. Please give this video a big thumbs up, smash the like button, because that helps YouTube to push out my content, and that will be you supporting your girl. With that all said, guys, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like, just do everything, like comment, share this video, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because that helps my channel. And you can also join the membership. You can also decide to give a token to your girl. Anyway, guys, with that all said, guys, I will see you guys in my next video.